muito boa noite a todos. Sejam bem-vindos à nossa segunda noite. E, como na nossa programação, a gente recebe hoje a professora Söderquist, que é já conhecida por nós. E é um prazer e uma honra tê-la aqui conosco, tanto pela qualidade do seu trabalho, quanto pelo fato de agora, vocês sabem, ela está à frente da Kierkegaard de Olaf, e um lugar que é muito especial para grande parte de nós aqui, da comunidade de estudos de Kierkegaard no Brasil. Nós temos uma relação longa, longeva e profícua com a instituição, então que é especialmente tão honroso e prazeroso para nós de muitas formas. Eu vou fazer uma curtíssima apresentação do currículo da professora Ana, que obviamente supera esse resumo bastante abreviado que eu vou fazer. A professora Ana é especialista em Kierkegaard, em filosofia continental e história da filosofia, e os seus interesses estão entre a seção de filosofia, religião, literatura e arte. Ela é autora de Kierkegaard on Dialectical Education, Vulnerable Freedom, e publicou diversos artigos em diversos periódicos, além de ser, então, agora professora associada de filosofia do St. Olaf College, em Minnesota, e curadora da Home Kierkegaard Library. Professor Anna, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here, and especially tonight. So, I give it the floor.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Nothing you said is true. I don't know. What time? And obrigada to be here. I'm very grateful to the organizers. And thank you, Gabriel, for the introduction. And thank you especially to Marcio for everything you've done, and to the kind friends that welcomed me here. And thank you to all of you for your patience. I don't speak Portuguese, but some beautiful words. So thank you for listening in English tonight. I also want to quickly mention that the Kierkegaard Library is my second year as director. It has a long tradition, as many of you know, because so many of you have been visiting Northfield and some of your students. And we welcome you to continue. Is that better? Yeah. So you're welcome in St. Olaf. Please visit us. Please send your students. And I know some of you will have also noticed that we transformed the Kierkegaard newsletter into an academic journal, the new international journal Kierkegaard Research. So please think to submit your works, invite your students to submit works to our meeting. Thank you. I'll begin. Boredom is an evil that conditions the modern subject. This thesis that the individual is bored in modernity, and that this gives rise to evil, was first given expression by Kierkegaard's pseudonym A in the essay Crop Rotation by the Board Part 1, published in 1843. More recently, in a 2022 book called The Critique of Bored Reason, Dmitry Nikulin reaffirms that, quote, we live in an age surrounded marked by boredom, despite troubling social and political conflicts and exciting scientific and technological advancements. As Nikulin argues, the evil of boredom is a condition, not just a mental state or psychological emotion, of the modern subject. Boredom constitutes, as Nikulin puts it, the very conditio moderna, Describing the board self in terms highly resonant with Eddie, McCullen writes, self-defined by excessive reflexing and self-awareness, a historical self-construction that realizes itself as autonomous, as self-legislating, and as self-sufficient. The modern subject is utterly lonely, solitary, and monological in its being and thoughts. Hence, it is inevitably bored. McCullen's book contends that what Kierkegaard wrote almost 2 centuries ago still applies today. The modern subject exists as isolated and self-imposed. A bored condition links to its radical autonomy and self-directed existence. The aim of the present paper is to enter into dialogue with Kierkegaard concerning the present-day world by re-examining with him the origin of evil. In the following, I begin with a justification for engaging with A's proposition essay as a source of the serious thought on contemporary evil. I proceed to A's claim that boredom is an origin of evil, clarifying the conceptual function of the pair immediacy and reflection as 2 forms of evil. Next, A's notion of demonic pantheism illuminates what lies behind boredom, namely a universal experience of meaninglessness. And finally, I suggest there is no escape from boredom for the modern subject, only potentially a way through it. I hope through an existential phenomenological reading of A's proposition to identify the modern subject's isolation and radical autonomy as evils emerging from the boredom of modernity and still persistent today. As mentioned, McCullen argues that boredom is a particularly modern phenomenon. He notes that, quote, the conception of boredom is conspicuously absent from ancient thought, arising probably only in modernity. While surely McCullen admits anyone, even animals, can be bored, still, quote, boredom becomes the pervasive mood of existence in the propriety of the subject, only in modernity. This thought is also formulated by William MacDonald, cited by McCullen, emphasizes the pervasiveness of discourse on boredom in the 19th century. Quote, boredom is not a universal feature of human life, but arises as a distinctive malady of modernity and epidemic proportions. In contrast, it may seem that A's philosophical anthropology extends beyond our particular modern era. He maps the history of boredom from Adam and Eve through ancient Rome and into modern times. However, as a specialized term, where boredom comes to mean nihilism, A describes a condition that must be linked to the total loss of life, to the death of God. Historically speaking, the gods have died before, so we can allow that such a phenomenon repeats. And boredom or nihilism may reappear in different eras, just as in different periods of an individual life. Nonetheless, as modernity replaces a world historical narrative not with new gods, but with modern science and with a rational, autonomous subject, a new form of nihilism is justice. This is the nihilism that accompanies the subject's alienation and radical autonomy. Kierkegaard also underlines this point, noting that the despair described in Part 1 of Conferência pertains to an entire era. In this sense, Kierkegaard's analysis of the bored modernness aligns with McCullen's. close off the comment itself. Ultimately, however, McCullen's text distances itself from Kierkegaard, seeking a solution to modern world, ancient comedy, a release from the tragic to the comic. While the modern subject is viewed as tragic in its isolation and loneliness, the comic subject is bound up together with others in shared action, and thus escapes the monograph. While the tragic subject seeks but does not find genuine freedom in isolated reflection, the comic subject is free from reflections in solitude, through shared thought and distributed action with others. The critique that Kierkegaard fails to tap into dialectical responses to the modern subject's isolation has merits. Before proceeding to solutions, however, we may glean insights from A's description. McCullen's text engages Kierkegaard primarily on the ontological category of the nothing behind work, as discussed in the introduction to the concept of anxiety. A line of thought that leads to moral questions about our relations with others. What it doesn't do is treat A's existential phenomenological analysis for in crop rotation. This latter text presents real differences that must be addressed before we can proceed to meaningful shared thought and action. Namely, as Michael Posa says, boredom is, quote, symptomatic of a deeper existential condition that can be disguised but not readily transformed. End quote. This deeper existential condition is meaninglessness or nihilism. And suggesting we give place to what A has to say about evil in confrontation, I received my cue from the Danish philosopher Ulaf, who articulates the bold claim that we should read Kierkegaard's works and papers as an all-embracing encounter with A's position in crop rotation. End quote. Luca advances that A is most central to current this philosophical discussion, much more so than the dull judge of the second part of the board, or the pompous clinicus of the script. Luca's idea is that contemporary life shares A's negative starting point in crop rotation, and thus faces the same evil consequences. As such, A is an important interlocutor for us today. Worth noting is that Luca's contention is to argue for a sober treatment of Kierkegaard's deconstructed, non-metaphysical world in order to better understand the reconstruction of metaphysics Kierkegaard ultimately advocates. Here, I leave the question of Kierkegaard's positive metaphysics for another time, pursuing instead its negative description of a universally human loss of meaning, universal at least for the modern subject. What I seek to bring out in our report part 1 is the portrayal of this loss from one fully immersed in the experience. A provides us just that. Unfortunately, however, says Luca, A is seldom taken seriously in Kierkegaard literature. To take A seriously means to examine carefully A's lived insight into forms of existential that prevent us from engaging our world with meaningful, consistent, transformative ways. I suggest crop rotation offers us something unique, not found elsewhere in Kierkegaard's treatments of evil. A takes evil not as a moral category, but an existential phenomenological one. It describes two related forms of evil, an evil of everydayness, as well as an elite evil, the ironist or idealist, the forms of which play out in lived experience. Thus, he looks at existential evil in immediacy as well as in reflection, categories that may sound familiar to readers. However, in secondary literature, we often read about A's position as hinted from the perspective of his alter ego in part 2 of either or, B or Wilhelm. Garth too illuminates a major shortcoming of this approach. If A is taken as identical with the person whom he addresses himself, one has to admit that B is A all along. Quote, Wilhelm's basic characterization of the aesthetic seems to be so simplified as practically to miss its mark. And similarly, as David Kangas points out, one tends to regard A's position only in terms of what it would have meant for the ethical, religious life considered as telos. Kangas summarizes the tendency as follows. Overwhelmingly, the papers of A have been read in the light of religious teleology, namely as expressions of an inauthentic stage of existence, the aesthetic stage. One discovers there, it is argued, only the contours of an existential importance of life that has, in fact, already been surpassed by an ethical and religious point of view, namely by the analyses of part 2. The truth of A's life view would be recoverable only in the light of ethical and finally religious telos of existence. As such, it remains untrue. This is what I take readings such as William MacDonald's committed to interpreting Kierkegaard's spheres of stages of existence to be doing, concluding along such lines as these. Real freedom for Kierkegaard consists in choosing the ethical religious life, since it is only by making this choice that one willingly becomes responsible for his own actions. And a reading of either or that remains loyal to the things that one state figure by Kierkegaard, the point of view from my work as an author, and the related notebook entries. As compares with the second edition of either or, Kierkegaard reflects on 5 years of publications and urges his readers to understand them, including the so-called aesthetic texts, through the lens that, quote, I am and was a religious author, end quote. If the author himself wants the so-called aesthetic works to be read in this teleological light, how are we to free either or from authorial self-interpretation? Kierkegaard suggests we allow ourselves to do just that. He urges for, quote, a reading that does not fall for reductionist theories of stages, and is not blind to the existential progression and conceptual development throughout the authorship. A reading that does not naively lead the work back to the author behind it, that is aware of the complex and dramatic connection between the writing and following Garth, I also secured to allow either or to speak for itself. One might also be tempted, like Kuhn, to read certain phenomena backward from the later Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard's later conclusive and for A, damning formulations. However, while the same phenomena of evil is described by A, such as despair and the demonic, are treated by anti-Kangas and anxiety, by Paphnazis in the Sickness and Death. Those later texts look in from the outside, as Rupert King observes, already positing the demoniac's negative movements together with their proposed positive possibilities. Thus, conscious anxiety perceives at once anxiety and the possibility of being saved from anxiety. Sickness and death sees simultaneously despair and the possibility of overcoming despair. In each case, with a full picture in mind, texts describe forms of evil and their counterparts. One does not necessarily come away from these texts prepared to drop the negative and turn promptly to solutions. After all, they describe in psychologically insightful terms the demoniac's self-entrapment, which one must take seriously. Nonetheless, these texts, it may be easier to judge demonic tendencies, to consider them only from the outside, to ignore their bearing on one's own. In contrast to UNISINOS, A's writings provide a view from within. Instead of proceeding directly to a telos embedded in B, appearing in later words, promoted by some terms in literature, remaining with A puts us before original and persistent difficulties. As Kangas observes, A's position, quote, translates as a truly radical kind of questioning of its foundations, far from being able to ignore or deflect this. The ethical and religious points of view will be constrained constantly to presuppose its injury. A's perspective reveals the common people experience as profound personal loss and disorientation in relation to one's beginnings, experiences that follow him or anyone into other possibilities of existence. In relation to existential evil, A lives and describes the loss of immediacy, death of God, the homelessness of the modern subject. In short, the experience of despair. From within the evil, all-consuming self-influenced boredom, A does not recommend solutions, not because he lacks self-awareness, but because such saving possibilities are simply untenable. The experience of disillusionment has dispelled such illusory thinking. As Luca observes, for A, quote, there is no real alternative to the demonic way of life, since he has discovered that belief in metaphysically secure good is an illusion. If we reverse the common reading by Gabriel that gives building authority in responding to King's position, what this is what Darwin writes. He interprets the overall structure of either order described and into practice by the editor, and played out in the whole as the expression of a single consciousness that actually takes seriously A's conflicts and rather parodies B's position. And why shouldn't A be the one to advise B? After all, Kierkegaard wrote B's part first. Within this reversed or single critical consciousness viewpoint on the work of we find A offering powerful objections to these positions, flipping traditional readings rather. A does so from within the life of non-existence. Along similar lines, Gabriel invites our thinking instead of taking an objective position from which one seeks to refrain from, to tarry the residue left in lived life. Quote, let us tarry after the tedium left behind by boredom in favor of attempting to understand it. While boredom defies conceptualization, according to Gabriel, we can find our way into, quote, an echo resounding throughout existence as the possibility of our being fugitives ready to flee from the world. And Such access to what is revealed in boredom requires remaining with. By dwelling with A's confrontation, we welcome the possibility of doing serious thinking on the personal lived experience of loss of meaning that plagues contemporary life. Confrontation takes its point of departure in the so-called basic principle that all people are boring. From there, heightening the thesis, A declares, boredom is the root of all evil. In this phrase, which plays off the adage, idleness is the root of all evil, it can be tempting to hear merely a mockery of the serious and philosophical endeavor, as in seeking first principles. As Duke admits, a superficial glance of confrontation could easily dismiss it as a really lengthened and extended diaxon. Confrontation is replete with seemingly flippant observations, as when it laments that one cannot divorce a wife, throne a king, exile a clergyman, dismiss a cabinet minister, or execute journalists just because they're boring. If we're honest, however, we might find ourselves admitting some truth to these criticisms. Candace notes that despite the work's apparent asceticism, quote, it would be a mistake to treat the essay as the mere extravagances in its seat, end quote. Similarly, Duke writes, quote, without a doubt, the essay is ironical, shameless, without respect for academic standards. But nonetheless, behind the devil-may-care attitude, we find a deep dependence on philosophical tradition. Duke goes so far as to say that behind A's irony lurks a philosophically consistent anti-metaphysical treatments. More precisely, A's negative thesis points to, quote, an absence of all metaphysical principles, end quote. The treatment of boredom, then, engages traditional philosophical thought by opposing itself to it. Bigelow interprets boredom as the failure of sense, quote, as the despairing insistence that nothing means nothing, a position which emerges from the experience of lost meaning. In existential terms, A's sarcasm masks a familiar, because universal, experience of meaninglessness. When the people, circumstances, and commitments in one's life become insupportably boring and evil, trap, and shore, this is a good sign that things have become senseless. So what is A's insight on the roots of evil? A admits all who are bored cry out for change. He portrays boredom as a repellent force, an impetus that pushes from behind, rather than drawing ahead to a kind of purely negative errors. Boredom as the negative repels. It's natural, A insists, to want to conquer this root of all evil. However, in their case, people don't think over about this. The risk is always that, quote, demonically possessed by boredom, and attempts to escape it, one works one's way into it. The two forms of existential evil that emerge from these attempts to flee boredom line up with these two categories of boring people. The first type, quote, the plebeians, the crowd, the endless train of humanity in general, are the most bored of all, the most unbearable, as they flee boredom into the evils of entertainment or work. The problem with these forms of entertainment, they notes, is that they utterly fail to serve boredom, even if one half-heartedly thinks to succeed. Quote, vulgar, inartistic, but also illusory, end quote. McCullen agrees, echoing A's assessment for our time. The modern subject tries to get rid of the inevitability of boredom by turning to the pervasive and equally repetitive entertainment. The problem is improvements by making time short, by filling it with overwhelming possibilities for amusement. We essentially give up on it by using it up in distractions. Until the sign of the warns that we are killing time rather than being in time. When the diverting activity appears full and intense in the moment, but empty in retrospect. How often today do we suffer the hangover of previous night's senseless entertainment? The situation is no less boring with these meaningless working agents. Here, A captures the lament of an embittered, disenchanted, post-enlightenment generation that wakes up from an unreflected and blinks its eyes in astonishment at the futile, life-dreaming sensibleness of the world. All around, everyone seems busy at work. Those worrying insects and buzzing in the throat. A serious existential evil characterizes everyday modern times, namely that it turns human beings into worker beings, whose activity aims at efficiency and who remain ignorant of the futility of their actions. As A writes, quote, there is a tireless activity that shuts the person out of the world of spirit and places him in a class of animals, which instinctively must always be in motion. There are people who have an extraordinary talent for transforming everything into a business operation. His whole life is a business operation. Fall in love and are married, hear a joke, and admire a work of art, same business-like zeal with which they work at the office. His tone here is sarcastic. But as a poet, he expresses the same disillusionment sung by many literary heroes, all of whom discern the people of modernity's meaningless daily grind and senseless diversions. In this spirit, we read from a young artist, quote, when I observe the narrow limits in which man's power of action and investigation are confined, when I see how our activity aims at satisfying needs that once again have purpose beyond prolonging our wretched existence, all this, Wilhelm, stuns me into silence. End quote. These words come from Goethe's hero in the romantic novel's prototype, The Sufferings of Young Werther. Goethe and Kierkegaard weren't alone either in observing this boring state of affairs. Kuhlin notes that we hear similar complaints from characters in alter egos, a bunch of Dostoevsky, Flaubert, and Molière. As he writes, these inspired singers of the weakness of boredom are all born in the first quarter of the 19th century, so that their flourishing coincides with the tightening bourgeois grasp on the world. End quote. The middle class, whose materialist values and conventional attitudes became the guiding spirit of the spiritless modernity, also gives rise to a generation of poets and artists who find ways to spill over the sense of loss into oftentimes humorous or ironic portrayals that they themselves do not always seem to be. Today, we don't have to look far to find the wolves of Wall Street crawling our midst, depictions of the disillusioned capitalists and spent consumerists around. As for solutions, A's approach to work rests on the principle that not working is the supreme good. Quote, idleness as such is by no means a root of evil. On the contrary, it is truly a divine life if one is not born. End quote. Here, one recalls Albert Camus' first extremely published novel, Happy Death. The protagonist's happiness by attempting to capture time through idleness. There it's made plain that avoiding boredom while cultivating doing nothing is a formidable, difficult art form. That is, if one doesn't succumb in the process to becoming bored to death. And yet, considering A's perception of the senselessness of losing time by using it up, one can easily follow along the thought that searches a meaningful way to enter the present moment. As for the bolder, inartistic means of entertainment that capture the masses, A proposes instead his crop rotation, an elite method of amusement for the chosen ones, the nobility, that turns in to focus on the life of the moment. He offers a guide on how to cultivate ideality, a place where one can live in reflection. Here is a matter of being resourceful, using the principle of limitation, of varying how one employs his power of attention and imagination, and of refining one's ability to recall and, most importantly, to forget. This method of internal intellectual self-motivation needs practice and requires great self-control. The payoff is self-reliance. When nearly all external avenues to divert into senselessness, when nearly all external avenues appear to divert into senselessness, the appeal of cultivating an inner world, which within one's own control is compelling, if not imperative. So much for A's solutions outlined in this, and for which we truly, A knows there's ultimately no way around the border. Doubtless, he has himself in mind when he writes, the other class of human beings, the superior ones, are those who bore themselves and entertain others. He may entertain us with a recount of the masses of his co-initiates, with his witty essay and proposed crop rotation. But while amusing others, the joke is on him, as he knows. Bigelow underlines that meaningful questioning of existence entails examining how we position in life. But boredom, he thinks, if it is anything, is the refusal to take up a position in existence. End quote. A's reflective person, like all who are bored, seeks change, but perhaps more earnestly than the immediate person, as Bigelow puts it. He makes an existential demand upon life that become once again enchanting. However, without a place in reality, others in ideal mood, unable to reclaim the world he has disowned, lacking contact with such a figure approaches death. This is the negative impetus they warn us. Boredom motivates, but only towards destruction, even of the self. It is very curious, A ponders, quotes, that boredom, which itself is a calm and sedate nature, can have such capacity to initiate motion, that is, negative motion. In other words, curious that boredom, seemingly inert, can give rise to existential evil. How it works with the ironist is that reflection exists in a closed-in space that further closes in on itself, risking self-disintegration, even while it entertains. Thus, A writes, the more thorough clearly reflected ones for themselves, the more potent the medium of diversion they offer others, since they either die of boredom or shoot themselves out of curiosity. Irony would have a cost, not only because they express the pain of loss of immediacy, but also because they reinforce the modern subject's isolation and loneliness. It is in this sense, isolated reflection, that A separates the evil that issues from boredom. Behind the pseudonym lurks Kierkegaard himself, jotted down the following on a loose strip of paper a few years before publishing my book. I have just come from a gathering, which I was the life of the party. Witticisms leapt from my lips. Everyone laughed and admired me. But I left, yes, the dash ought to be as long as the great eye of the earth's point, and wanted to shoot myself. Whether Kierkegaard's or A's, I find distance in modern wording, the word modern subject, is experienced as a painful evil of the isolated individual, even victim to suicide. It's no wonder then, after using, quote, to raise my voice in order to address my contemporaries, to initiate them into my wisdom. A declares that his nihilism isn't for everyone. I want some followers. Then again, he continues, if someone was standing beside my bed, if I were sure it's all over for me, then in a fix of philanthropic delirium, I whispered my doctor into his ear, not quite sure whether I would have done him a favor or not, while initiating us into his disenchantment with performance. He also appreciates that being rid of one's delusions as a movement from one form of existential evil, immediate ignorance, to another, deeper one, alienation. It's painful. Today we can recognize both the evil of immediacy, which flees the meaninglessness of modernity into ever more meaningless pursuits, as well as the evil of reflection, which becomes painfully alienated as it isolates itself from the senselessness of our times. While A expertly distinguishes between two forms of contemporary evil, immediate and reflective, it also excels at uncovering what unites them. Namely, behind boredom, both the plebeian and the elite is an experience of meaninglessness. In A's words, quote, boredom rests upon the nothing that interlaces existence. As boredom unites both the immediate and the reflective individual, we can assume that both types experience and flee from this nothingness. But only does the latter become self-conscious in its effects. The discovery of this nothing for the person is all-consuming. This is what A intends to clarify when he elaborates. Boredom is the demonic pantheism. Söderquist suggests we understand pantheism here as a sense that God is in everything, which guarantees order, a distinction between good and evil, content for good and evil, and the conditions for realizing good. Carson Harring's, in his commentary on order between nihilism and faith, also underlines the pantheist experience that everything is full of God. By contrast, A's demonic pantheism suggests not only an experience of loss of fullness, but total breach of that loss, As A clarifies, quote, pantheism ordinarily implies the qualification of fullness. But boredom is the reverse. It is built on emptiness. For this very reason, it is a pantheistic qualification. On the all-pervading quality of A's demonic pantheism, Gabriel quotes, the only thing left in pantheism is the universality of universal emptiness, absence of the principles, the death of God, and as an all-encompassing experience of discovering emptiness, boring for A is more than a temporary feeling or passing states. The individual suffers it as it lives existential evil. This encounter, A elaborates, is experienced as infinite dizziness, like that which comes from looking down into a bottomless abyss, disoriented, dizzy, all meaning swallowed by nothingness. In Harry's formulation, the experience is characterized by a sense of lost its place. There is no ground on which to stand, no sign telling us where to go. Wandering the path without sight, thinking over an abyss, these images leave a strong impression of existential loss. The demonic interpretation describes deeply personal and painful experience of losing one's God or one's trust in a unifying, meaning-providing absolute, and of discovering nothing in its place. Harry's notes that while the pantheist sees all things as revealing God, the bored person sees them as revealing nothing. He continues, quote, the place which God occupied here has become empty. The foundation of bored men is nihilism. A's perspective further reveals that an all-creating experience of nothingness prevents any future trust. It underlines this loss of possibility. Quote, while the pantheist senses the presence of God in everything, and thus finds everything infinitely significant, the bored person senses the nothingness from being everything, finds nothing important. This loss of trust in the future explains A's decision to resort to the propagation method. Through it, he is able to bracket life, to snip off the painful points, and to justify throwing hope overboard so he can be master of the ship. No longer at the whim of blind hopes, free from a painful past, quote, he is then able to play shuttlecock with all existence. What A has gained through boredom is freedom, negative improvement. Repelled by the negative emphasis, freedom can only be negative, in the sense of freedom from demands, commitments, and obligations. Much is gained in the negative movement, as one is freed from the bondage of determining objects and concerns. The mind, the imagination in particular, enjoys space of play. But much is lost, too, as such play or enjoyment unfolds in isolation from life itself. Referring to A's fictional creation, Johannes Schuster, Harry's place, like a diary writer, enjoys not so much life itself as the entries in his diary. He puts life at distance, filters it through the medium of his reflections. Free from life, A can now enjoy the space of his own reflections. Freedom for future possibilities, positive freedom, eludes him and he knows it. We might ask ourselves if we recognize A's starting point in our own secular world, which long ago forewent attempts at ordering human affairs through divine decree. And like A, we might recognize his experience of personal loss of meaning following an event or series of events in our lives. One can be sure that A, like any of us, had initially wanted to trust in friendship, in meaningful engagements in work and community. But what happens when the invisible force that holds such daring ventures together dissipates? Think back to the time of your first divorce. By divorce, I mean that experience in one of your commitments in which you had believed and invested as meaningful and essential to life, fell apart. Or take any person emerging into adulthood from childhood. She discovers the laws, customs, and habits that govern her social world and personal existence are not absolutes. Even mistaken, they are not straightaway replaced by better or different laws, customs, and habits, because she sees roots of ordering against itself in the mystery practice, aimed at avoiding all nothingness. When A warns us to avoid commitments such as friendship, marriage, taking an official post, it's because it's already tried and failed in trusting in life in this way. Without a meaningful meaning-providing foundation, A now sees through the cycle of hope and disillusionment. Cannot help but see the hypocrisy of the lie, the cunningness of all this chatter about sociality and community. As he writes, there's so much talk about man's being a social animal, but basically it's a beast of prey, something you would guess against. When we have lost the ground which gives life meaning, including the social world, Kierkegaard offers, we are left with a naked routine stripped of all ideological social. Insistence on social practices by the practitioners is now experienced as obtrusive, malicious, and shows evil. A knows his crop rotation doesn't fulfill work, at least not in his goal to serve boredom. Kierkegaard observes that A's characterization of others as bored, but the symptoms of boredom does not exclude himself. He sees that he too is characterized by this emptiness. Only by slowing down to provide does one recognize and gain further understanding of the internal experience of this emptiness. Otherwise, as mentioned, it's too easy to dismiss A's analysis of boredom as loosely just. As Keynes indicates, the common theme of the essay masks the profound pain of the subject. But boredom reveals the phenomenological experience of being dispossessed of oneself, one's world. Most painful, Keynes writes, is that the subject has to live its own dispossession. Harry describes A as detaching himself from his engaged being in the world in order to enjoy it, becoming his own spectator. Quote, he wants to remain free, he does not want the stream to getting involved. The isolated, radically autonomous individual, disengaged from the world, is the borderline subject. Existing in the people of ideality without hope. A is still possessed, importantly, which cannot escape. The problem is that order is the prevailing mood of negative thinking too, so that not even the affected individual is influenced. When Kierkegaard addressed moods 2 years earlier in his dissertation, he noted that the ironists cannot escape the mood of order, illuminating the ironist's attempts at self-creation. Kierkegaard writes, the ironist poeticizes everything, poeticizes his moods too. In order genuinely to be free, he must have control of his moods. Therefore, one mood must instantly be succeeded by another. However, since his life is nothing but moods, the ironist threatens to disintegrate into the continuity. As Brian Söderquist notes in his analysis of Kierkegaard's concept of irony, the ironist has nothing underlying everything where an original self should be. Superficial or artificial moods are allowed to cover all activity, and the underlying mood explodes one's emotional activities. The only thing that still holds the irons together is order. Since there always must be a bond that ties these contrasts together, a unity in which the enormous distances between which resolve themselves. On close inspection, one will reveal this unity in happiness. Boredom is the only continuity of this happiness. Boredom, this eternity devoid of content, salvation devoid of joy, this superficial profundity, this hungry lust. But boredom is precisely the negative unity admitted into personal consciousness, wherein the opposites vanish. A negative unity does not admit the difference, a disruption to monologue. The coon sees a way out of boredom only through genuine value suggests. In the absence of the real other, that remains always a task to be achieved. And thus, in a situation where the communication is impossible, entertainment is diversion from and substitution for well-being becomes a pointless and endless flight to boredom, which we never escape. Is loneliness, autonomy, lack of ties, commitments, feed boredom rather than studies. Meanwhile, the pantheistic quality of these boredom and emptiness precludes any possibility of meaningful intrusion. A seems destined to remain bored alone. Many will propose a way out of nihilism, the potential of healing from the pain of losing immediacy, and solutions better than aids to the existential evil of modern times. For the most part, these efforts, Nietzsche's growth power and Ruth's absurdism, starts existential humanism. A would likely have dismissed its further illusions. However, Kierkegaard's works themselves are between negative and positive movements, and have suggested that one ought not rush too quickly to the positive, for the fear of missing something essential and negative. Nonetheless, Kierkegaard does posit possibilities opposed to those described by A. In closing, I would like to draw attention to a window to which A himself draws. These words are found not in the essay on boredom, but on this scrap of paper, which Victor Ferreira, editor of Gabriel, found and published together with other refrains in what he titled "The Song." It reads as follows. How dreadful boredom is, how dreadfully boring. I know no stronger expression than true. Lie prostrates ignorance. The only thing I see is emptiness. The only thing I live on is emptiness. The only thing I move on is emptiness. I am dying death. And what could that bring? Well, if I manage to see faithfulness, it's with every idea ordeal, an enthusiasm that endured everything, faith that moved mountains. I want to become aware of an idea that joined the finite and infinite. But my soul's poisonous doubt consumes me. My soul's like the dead sea, over which no bird is able to fly. When it has come midway, it sinks down, exhausted, to death and destruction. If anyone could make a case on existential terms for overcoming evil boredom, for faith, for an idea that joins the sacred and profound, trust in life, it's probably be part 2 I have. However, Victor Arruda, the consciousness that unites A and altered, holds these two proposed existence possibilities, doubt and faith, together in real unresolved tension. And suggests that B does not so easily win out. The venture for another time may seek to take up faith's response to that. Today, I understand that faith's position is still at a certain point in the present age. In a world after the death of God, boredom is an evil that conditions us modern subjects. For that reason, unable to renounce the complete modernity, we cannot so much escape the world as potentially move through it. Positive freedom would not entail a blind return to the old gods, any more than it would achieve through self-effacement into the divine. But it very well may involve moving through pain, loss, and news, to discover, despite disillusionment and through faith, how to trust in love. Such an attempt, however, will have to end soon. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for the presentation. Nos casos eu vou, a gente não tem texto escrito, às vezes eu vou falar em inglês, mas aqui tem alguns pontos chaves que eu vou falar em português, e aí de modo que vocês obviamente podem se reportar, e aí eu vou te falando, passar para mim, por favor. Once again, thank you so much for the presentation. It's very provocative, and I won't dispute any point of the presentation. It's somehow true. But what I would like to do is to take your suggestion seriously, which means to take the position of A is going to be, and what we could or should derive from it. From 3 points here. The first one is a philosophical problem. The second one is what I'm calling as an hermeneutic exegetical problem in the reading of Kierkegaard, because I think that proposal has methodological, hermeneutical consequences. And the third aspect I mentioned is what I'm calling hermeneutical metaphor, Kierkegaard and himself. Not in a way connected to the way we read the text in the sense, but how we could or should approach to Kierkegaard corpus or to Kierkegaard thought. The first one is what I'm calling here problem, philosophical problem per se, which is it's a solution to that evil through faith, which is always theoretically available. Is it always available from the perspective of the individual? What I mean by it? And now I'm quoting a book published in 2022 by a Hungarian philosopher called Olaf, which has the very best title book ever, which is the title of the book is wonderful. This one, Dostoevsky reads Hegel in Siberia and bursts into tears. It's the best book title ever. I sent it to Anna, so forgive me, I will read in Portuguese because they don't know. Just two remarks before. Frederic is talking about when Dostoevsky was sent to Siberia, right? He met this guy called Vogler, wrong, and they start to talk and read things together and to engage in philosophical and theological conversations. And it is true. This guy knows in his notebooks that they read Hegel together. And then Foley has this wonderful insight trying to make a sort of hypothesis about what probably they read and what they had discussed. I'm going to read for you. Com mais espaço para hipóteses, vamos supor que ele tenha encomendado ele, as palestras de Hegel sobre a filosofia da história mundial, apresentadas entre o outono de 1822 e a primavera de 1831 na Universidade de Berlim, ocorrendo paralelamente aos milhares de exilados que continuamente chegavam na Sibéria. Sua discussão sobre a Ásia, em outras palavras, de Hegel, começa com este comentário, que cita Hegel, nas lições de filosofia da história. Primeiramente, devemos eliminar a Sibéria, a vertente norte da Ásia, pois ela está fora do escopo de nossa investigação. O caráter inteiro da Sibéria a descarta como um cenário para a cultura histórica e impede que ela alcance uma forma distinta no processo histórico mundial. Fim de citação do Hegel. Podemos bem imaginar a consternação de Dostoiévski ao deparar com essas linhas enquanto estava sentado ao lado da tela de cera. E também podemos facilmente imaginar seu desespero, pois ele foi obrigado a confrontar o fato de que lá na Europa, cujos ideais lhe valeram uma sentença de morte, mas que o enviaram ao exílio, não se atribuía nenhuma significância às suas muitas aflições, pois suas aflições o acompanharam até a Sibéria, até aquele mundo que não fazia parte da história. Fim de citação. What Foley is addressing and talking about Hegel, in a way, A could say the same or have the same position about B or about Kierkegaard theological approach, religious approach as well. Just because for the modern singular individual, those overcoming solutions that work on a universal theoretical level, as for instance faith or leap of faith, or whatever, are not always readily available. A leap of faith, night of faith, are analogous solutions to the modern aid man. To what George Snyder, in that wonderful book Nostalgia, calls substitute theologies of modernity. From the A's point of view, the solution, faith solution, is analogous or similar to what Snyder calls substitute theologies as science, psychoanalysis, mentions that, or even social politics, these kind of things. All of them are substitute theologies, for this nostalgia, our nostalgia, and apart from the standpoint of A, all of them are absolutely equal or equivalent. It's the same I'm recalling here, the between Hans Blumenbach and Karl Ludwig, or even Carl Schmitt, when they say that, for instance, modernity is a secular version, for instance, the modern approach to history, for instance, it is a secular version of religious approach to history, all the history of salvation, and so on. And that's why we moderns are just kind of trying to replace one thing for another. But that's Hans Blumenbach says in his book, The Legitimacy of Modernity. Blumenbach says, from the standpoint of the modern man, there's no reason to think that they're not equivalent. From the A standpoint, or A's point of view, the modern substitutive theologies are all the same. There's no absolutely good reason to privilege these or religious approach over the secular answers or responses. So, the second point, I'm quoting part of your text here. However, while the same phenomenon of evil as described by A, such as despair and demonic, are treated by anticlimax in the concept of anxiety and by Vigilius Hopkiensis in the statement of that. So it's later that look in from the outside, Luke keenly observes. Thus, already positing the demoniac's negative movements together with their opposed positive possibilities of existence. Thus, the concept of anxiety perceives as anxiety the possibility of being saved from anxiety, and the sickness of death sees simultaneously despair and the possibility of overcoming despair. In each case, with a full picture in mind, these texts describe forms of evil and their counterparts. End quote. This what I'm calling hermeneutical exegetical thing. There's a consequence in taking A's seriously, but now not only from the standpoint of A, but from the point of how we read Kierkegaard, how we read those possibilities and those problems together, bound with the solutions. We get into what we're calling a hermeneutic exegetical presupposition of a pre-established harmony, which means we interpret the problems brought by Kierkegaard through the lenses of the presupposed answers. In the words of your text, we read A, having in mind these answers, or religious answers, or whatever. This is a problem, right? Because from a lot of points of view, a lot of dimensions. First of all, actually taking the problems seriously, because we have this methodological presupposition of a pre-established harmony, where Kierkegaard presents always, every time, presents the problems together with solutions, and when we read Kierkegaard's characterization of those problems, we interpret them through the lenses of our supposed or presupposed answers, which means that as a methodological tool, Kierkegaard's texts are seen, or Kierkegaard's problems are seen through like backwards, right? Because we read A's, for instance, through the lenses of the supposed already known answers and the religious authors. From 1 and 2 together, we have this methodological problem, which is what I'm calling meta problem, which is very much not now linked to the very exegetic aspect of reading Kierkegaard's text, but as a philosophical and hermeneutical approach to Kierkegaard as a philosopher or as a theologian, which is the fact that, in the end of the day, we have no critical interpretation of Kierkegaard. Because if every time we read Kierkegaard's presentation of those problems, together with the presupposed answers, we're not interpreting Kierkegaard from the point of view of its validity or the truth values, so to speak, of what Kierkegaard is saying. So we have this interpretation or hermeneutic problem, which is the fact that we don't do this kind of things. For instance, do we question the validity of the solutions proposed by Kierkegaard? Do we do that as not only readers of Kierkegaard texts, but as thinkers? I mean, if we take the position that Professor Anna presented to us tonight, if we take that seriously, A's position probably cannot be answered or solved by presupposed religious position. But when we acknowledge that, we acknowledge and we recognize for sure, it should follow that maybe Kierkegaard doesn't have a very good solution or a very good proposal to the modern man, to the A's position. So do we critically interpret Kierkegaard, or we are just reading the problems, presupposing that all the solutions are given, and we agree with them? In the end of the day, we really think about these last questions. For instance, does Kierkegaard truly provide sufficient reasons for the modern man, for instance, for the leap of faith, or for whatever kind of solution? Are we convinced by what Kierkegaard says to A? Because I think that, like Anna said, we hurry, we run towards the solution that we already exposed. So we don't pay really attention to the problem. And as a consequence, we are not asking if Kierkegaard is giving a good solution to it, a reasonable solution to AIDS, a reasonable solution to B, to the modern man. We are assuming that since every time Kierkegaard poses the problem, we read it through the lens of our a priori known answer, the problem is kind of solved. Right? So we're not taking the problems seriously, which has a methodological consequence. We're not interrogating Kierkegaard. Does Kierkegaard, what Kierkegaard is saying is true? I mean, we just presuppose that, because every time we read the problems, we're presupposing the solution and agreeing with it in a form that is absolutely not challenged. So I think that when I'm just presenting the questions again to finish. I'm finished here, but if we take what Professor Hans said tonight seriously, and if we take the problems not absolutely linked or immediately linked with the answers that we supposed to know and supposed to agree with, probably we have to face the question or the fact that Kierkegaard's solutions are not that good for them. And then probably A's position is something that we have to deal with in a more serious way. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to hear your response to what I was writing, but especially to hear you put a much better formulation than I did myself. And some of the consequences and ways of some of the consequences of reading A or reading Kierkegaard is taking seriously A answer to B, taking seriously the problems, applying to so-called solutions. I really appreciate this, the lines of thinking you were putting up, coming on two of them, and it's maybe open them up even further. Anyway, one of the things that you brought to mind for me is thinking about how we read Kierkegaard's authorship as a whole. And I really hope by spending some time with either or and A to suggest a kind of reading that can be a tool for how we approach Kierkegaard across authorship, so that early on, we take his first official text either or, and read it in a certain way, we can let that infuse what he's doing elsewhere throughout his authorship. So I think what I want to underline with that is that I read Kierkegaard to be deeply committed to thinking the negative, to thinking problems, difficulties, and to linger with them, really helping us get insight, even in his more scientific, academic, full picture, and works like the Death and Concept of Anxiety. We really are nonetheless drawn into psychological portrayals, little small movements of inner life, how he gets trouble. And the solutions are often right there at the border, because the problem is described so elaborately that possible way out is pointed to right there. But I don't think that Kierkegaard rushes to them too quickly. Even in texts, the readers will do that. Even in texts that deal with faith, even in the discourses. I've been reading Works of Love for the reading group recently, and I've been struck by how deeply negative text is. So the text is all about love and describing that we shall follow the command tells us what to do. It ought to be a text full of solutions, in a sense. It is. But when you watch the descriptions unfold of how we ought to be living, to live by love, it's pretty hard to miss how nearly impossible some of these tasks are. How truly difficult it is to live by faith and through faith, and how utterly we fail every day, how difficult we truly find it. So I think, what I want to underline is, in reading his close solutions that are easy. And then maybe just one other thing that hopefully open up the line of thought if you're interested in talking about this further. I like how Gabriel invited us to linger with the problems, to not even assume that Kierkegaard has good solutions, and to really take seriously the legitimacy to the things that are described in the name. Especially when we want to talk about Kierkegaard today. We're talking about evil, which conversation and essay brings us to. And look around at different people that we see around today and different ways that people suffer, ways that people find barriers and difficulties that are seemingly impossible to overcome, who's blocking us from good, from solutions. It just lets legitimacy in space talking about those problems. So making room for discourse about the dark side of evil things, the problems even that we encounter on social, political, and institutional levels that will make positive movements more difficult. So I appreciate being ready to think more deeply about that.
Thank you. Agora a gente pode passar para questões. Jonas, Alberto. Bom, Jonas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Acho que é melhor você talvez falar aqui, Jonas. Tá? Pegar um microfone.
So, Anna, thank you very much for such an exciting paper on boredom. And my question is about the implication of your paper. If we take seriously boredom and pay reflections on it, and if we think that somehow Kierkegaard seeks some kind of, let's say, answers on religion, on Christianity, and if maybe we cannot find a solution for boredom, so what would be religion in this way of reading Kierkegaard? Yeah, basically, all this content.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that question. Yeah, I think it connects to what we were just talking about with Gabriel, because first we get lots of positive inputs from Kierkegaard on what religious life might look like, or being a Christian might look like. Fear and trembling is coming to mind as a place that fear, I would describe fear and trembling as being to take seriously the same kind of problems that A presents. The stone is fighter who wants to help us into faith, into understanding how Abraham's example presents for us could be possible, how the way of faith, how the life of faith could be possible. The pseudonym becomes somebody who says, I can't do this, I don't understand. He tries to describe the forms of life and movements of faith, what they might look like. But what the text, trembling, overall invites us to do is to not let such a life be too palatable, too easy to jump into and say, yeah, I know what faith is. In fact, it's really easy. I know what being a Christian is. It's just being a good person. in an ethical way. I see it all around me. I see it at church. Brought up with various and follow rules, practices, tablet, 10 rules to follow. It's like faith is equivalent to something so easy to grab hold of, and it's easy to find. Kierkegaard wants to put us into in that text. It's a way of thinking about possible solution, a way of thinking about faith that is almost impossible to think, that you have to let a different part of yourself in your reasoning, ordering part of your mind walk into and follow. I guess it's part of what I'm seeing with here Gemma's response to the kind of problem about faith that A presents for us is that it knows that it isn't reasonable to get out of the problem that A is in. I was quoting A saying that what I think some interpreters seeing A as not seeing any tangible way out of the problem. There's no way out of it. Mind. So from that position, Kierkegaard's descriptions of faith attempts to reach into that place where it's not possible, really rationally, reasonably, to have faith from here, to trust. And right there, that's where something becomes possible. Where grace or movement from outside of myself becomes possible. Anyway, and Kierkegaard's pointing to a way of understanding faith that wants to describe a way to move from A's position to faith and not oversimplify it into something that's an easy thing.
So it's a paradoxical solution, right?
Yeah. And it has something to do with passive mood. It's an action it takes, it's an active passive mood. From a position of not being able to do anything myself, to get out of here. I let go, and something else takes over. It's kind of paradoxical mood.
Just seems to me that once again, from the Kierkegaard is guilt of the same thing that he's accusing Hegel of doing, which is a very theoretically speaking wonderful solution, which and that's why fluidity from the individual point of view, this leap of faith or whatever, or the night of faith, whatever, it's good. I mean, I'm not convinced, not even convinced in doing that. For instance, why should a modern man abandon science, for instance, as a fashion shop, as a view, origin, right? Why? Where?
So, thank you very much. I'd like to make a question because of the question that raises from first, this it's how scary, how it's logically negative or it's problem. But you stressed something that is very interesting because you mentioned that somehow it boredom is related to a bourgeois way of life. So it's somehow linked to modernity. So it can be understood as a modern problem or problem that has a historical aspect to it. So my question is, possible solutions for this problem would be also historical. I mean, during Gabriel's speech, he was talking about this question. What's the problem for, is there a solution for the modern being? And would this solution would have to be necessarily historical, or are there eternal solutions for this? And another thing, it's interesting how in the concept of society, Kierkegaard raises the problem and then presents a solution, and the same in the sequence today. I was thinking about something Kierkegaard wrote. I did not remember, so I cannot quote. He said that something like the correct contrast or correct relation would not be between the two parts of either or, but it would be a contrast that the correct interpretation would be a contrast confrontation between either or and the appealing discourses. So, in a sense, I'm not considering the whole of Kierkegaard's writing, but in a sense, wouldn't we consider as a whole either or and the appealing discourses of the same period as the same model of writing we find in concept of anxiety and sickness and to death as one word that presents the problem and then presents the solution. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That's a your first question about the solution we have to be historical to situating problems historically. It's a really interesting question to think about what Kierkegaard might respond to. First, have critiques of modern age, and have this passion and imagery of isolated subjects. So could this somehow change on a movement on a world historical? I don't really know exactly how to respond, but I am convinced that he thinks that there's no going back from being moderns. Right? When I'm teaching modern philosophy, I'm trying to convince my students that we're still moderns. Postmodernism is happening in the sense of this description of the subject of modernism. Still living in this, the consequences of this. You can't really reverse, modern science and technological age and things like that. But when I think about Kuhn's response, the person who wrote the critique of board reason, I would say that he's definitely looking at solutions that exceeded solutions that are inherently social. How we conceive of the dialogue between subjects, not even subjects anymore, or buried in I without kind of thing. The you and the you, and the way that we are in dialogue, and actually our becoming is unfolding in that biological interface. So these solutions would be in a community, be together with others in shared action. This is where the good ones ahead, and if it's like realizable, I'm imagining a different kind of life and way of being. I don't know. I'm not quite with solutions in my own mind. I don't know if it's a doable way. Do you want to jump in on this?
I don't know. It's precisely what Anna just described. It's precisely Blumenberg's position against religion and culture, which is there's no way back, really, and it's even if we assume that we have sort of nostalgia, this divine Shawn, we only can have those substitutions, and from that point of view, and that's why I think Blumenberg is right over Ludwig's and Schmidt's positions. But I think that, and don't kill the messenger, just it's not what I think personally, right? But I think that we will always, because of that, we will always have the moments. I mean, even if we find a historical answer, some sort of new era, we will always have some men like me. There's no way. Even if we some point in the future we find some sort of new arrangements, new work fields, we will always have moments. Yeah.
But also be historical. Just like that, we could presuppose genesis, succession, even if it's not there. I was thinking about something not historical, something like the eternal that would be valid for mankind in all ages. In other words, something religious, paradoxically valid in history, but not historical.
I think that solution is always available. Right? Since from Christianity onwards, that, or at least, that solution is always available. The point is, once again, we will always have an audience who will refuse to accept an eternal point, the subspecie eternal point of view. And the second, your second question about building discourses, the answer, the proper answer, the whole to wide art. My question is very good. I answer with another question, which is simple and straightforward. Do you think that building discourses have good answers for a modern age? Because once again, I think we sometimes presuppose that it is a hermeneutic. Once again, the pre-established harmony hermeneutical principle. We're presupposing that, for instance, building discourses are the proper answers to either or blah blah blah. But think yourself, right? Do you think that a modern age has reasons to assume or to take a building discourse as a proper answer to work in that sense?
Maybe not him, but the presumed leader of those both works. I mean, A would be a fictional character, lost cause, but the person, the listener, is reading to the board and also reading the building discourse. You would have a fragment of an answer, just like you would have a fragment of reading the concept of society and another fragment answer reading the sequence of that. So, of course, A is a fictional character. It seems to be a lost cause, but I don't know if people was thinking about A would be enlightened if you read that building discourse. But maybe the main concern, was not someone like A, but think about the reason.
Okay, but you used the word fragment. Do you agree that it is a very weaker approach? I mean, it's a very weaker solution. I mean, what I'm saying is that, okay, for some readers, it can be enlightening, it can engaging somehow. Okay, but as an philosophical answer, okay, it's a very weaker approach, but it's weaker than we are accustomed to. We're used to, right? Because we used to think that, for instance, that building discourses is the answer.
I think it's religion. Maybe we can draw kind of answer from, for example, the Gospels idea of the silver, something like that. I think maybe people was perceiving himself as someone doing this. Because some of these problems, some of these existential problems, like how to overcome this back, this ontologically negative problem. It cannot have a solution in the level of system. You can have some, you can point the direction here for that existential. But I don't know if you have a proper logical, conceptual answer.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm actually really sympathetic to what I'm understanding of what you're saying because I do think it's a beautiful picture to have Ivor on one side and the sources on the other side. Anytime that we can make readings between the Stone's work that was published at the same time as the discourses, I think it's always thematic connections and it's so rich and there's so much to mine from that, from your map. And Limited acceptance is a nice way of saying just like positive anxiety contains problem and solution. Do that in either or in the discourses. I have to examine the ones that are published that year to do that. Just think of the discourses in general and the response to the problem in general. I think that's fruitful. And what I'm hearing you saying that I really underline and support the readings. What's accomplished by putting the book there is to put them in tension with one another, to have both positive and negatives, both present, so that the person, the reader, is encountering them as a relationship with both of these movements in my life, but not in a sequential order, chronological way. I think some of the reading of spheres or statements in Kierkegaard would point more towards the chronology, the T-less and we finally get to the religious point of view, a way of being, and that's something accomplished. Whereas to keep the positive and the negative in dialogue, in tension with one another, it's, I think, a really rich and fruitful way of engaging with Kierkegaard's texts.
Mais perguntas? A gente tem 10 minutos para vocês serem felizes. Jones.
Yeah, it's interesting that if we talk about religion, when we look to the Bible, we find much more negativity in the Bible than we are used to generally. My question would be, don't you think sometimes that when Kierkegaard enters this kind of questions like boredom or despair, he has a kind of very strong theistic mind that is a little bit more difficult for us to share. I mean, sometimes he really thinks like, okay, God has a project for your life this way. So that's very, very strongly theistic. And it's after the 20th century and nowadays it's much more difficult to assume this kind of presupposition. I mean, maybe it's not impossible, much more difficult. do you also feel this kind of tension when he elaborates this kind of religious answers?
Yeah. Yeah, I do thank you so much. It's true. It's that scriptures is filled with complaining to God and asking why it's so difficult, and really wanting to move out to the task and living through the most difficult experience of being a human being. All the stories. I don't know. I think you're right that Kierkegaard has a very strong doctrinal framework, and that his teachings speak of a personal God who has a plan for you, who has created self, who you are able to become. And that's all a lot of positive content that can be very hard for A to accept. Maybe scripture also has positives like that as well, but you also find believing despite good sense in stories like that about ourselves, somehow escaping. I don't really have the response to agreeing with you on that.
Because he stresses the paradox and at the same time a very strong theistic work. So it's a bit difficult, isn't it? In here.
It's true.
Thank you.
Queridos, então, antes de acabar propriamente, deixa eu só passar os avisos. O Márcio pediu encarecidamente para reforçar vocês que podem na programação, porque amanhã a gente começa novamente com as sessões de comunicações às 8, e depois todo o resto da programação, vocês olhem lá no folder, toda ela segue lá no prédio da história. Nós não viremos para cá amanhã, correto? Só à noite, né? Só à noite. Então, mesmo de tarde, né, não será aqui a continuação do livro do Jonas, tudo continuará lá. Bom? Então, só à noite, diferentemente do que a gente fez hoje. Tudo bem? Muito obrigado. Once again, thank you so very much, Anna, for your presence.